Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Hopefully everyone's good to go. All right. I was kind of do this a little different. I've been in the industry for a while. One of my favorite things to do is actually help people get into the industry. I've done some pretty intense talks, and as you guys felt watching you guys have some pretty in-depth stuff, which I think is wonderful, and I really appreciate that. Working with a lot of people, they always want to know, like, you know, I want to be a pen tester because that's what everyone wants to be, and it's sad because the blue team gets sad because they always get like people who like right click and change admin accounts and AD and stuff like that. So I'm trying to like get more like what pen testing is. This is super high level. If you have some questions, I can go pretty deep as possible. I do have some qualifiers, like let you know who I am. If you guys have any questions, I could talk about anything you want to talk about, except Bitcoin. I don't have any time for that. So I think it's a different talk this afternoon. So anyway, so this is me. Who am I? I have a company, doesn't matter. Entrepreneur of the Year, 20 years of experience. I've worked over 2,000 court cases, 200 pen tests, 150 incident response engagements, and also some in Vegas. So if you go to Vegas, you guys let me know. I'll let you guys know the best places you can win at the casino. Also, if you guys didn't know, I was there when the guy hacked the temperature gauge on the fish tank. And he was able to laterally move into the casino and breach that. I don't know if you guys caught that. It was actually, it was really cool. So, so again, that's who I am. If you guys have any questions about this stuff, just let me know. And I kind of start this from the get-go. First of all, I love this movie. If you haven't seen it, please do. Kung Fu Fury. I'm not sponsored by them, but it is hilarious because this is the hacker man, right? So anytime you get in like a red team incident, everyone's like, man, I want to get in there. I want to run all these scripts. I want to hacker man. If I have a background in coding, can I be the best hacker? I would say out of all the pen tests that I've performed, you don't have to be that, we'll say, code intelligence. One thing I can do a little bit of coding, but I'm not a coder, nor have I ever been. I have heavy background in networking and digital forensics and stuff like that. Network forensics, you know, even desktop support. So I've came up through the ranks, even starting at like a help desk. Learning what a computer does, how it works. A lot of vulnerabilities aren't really like, you know, a new vulnerability that just got released or an O-Day, right? Those do happen, but to actually get a hold of those and actually be working for a client, unless you just, you know, you do it for fun at midnight on your VPN client coming in from Russia. You know, you don't really get a lot of that stuff. So working in the private sector, like what I do, I'm just trying to take the, you know, the hacker man kind of thing, and everyone wants to be one, which is, it's fun, it's cool, but maybe if you could make some money and not go to jail, might be another option. So that's kind of what I do. So offering these ideas and these opportunities to people that feel that they need to be more advanced than they are. So I'm just going to go through the methodology that I've come up with as I go through, and I'll just show you some steps, you know, without using like heavy exploits and stuff like that, and what I've done to take over companies within, you know, 5 to 10 minutes, just using tools that are free and are basically generic networking tools. So again, high level, this is more for a crowd that wants to get in the industry, and I always try to be a huge advocate for people that want to learn, because I feel like the more we share, the more we grow, and I'm always looking for people's feedback and people coming in the industry, because it's pretty limited. So I went off my soapbox. So getting into pen testing, so like first you got to get a baseline for security. Like what does that even mean? Getting a pen test is it's just saying like, okay, why are you doing it? What's the whole point of it? And what are the goals? Some people don't want you to just break in and start we'll say trying to exfil their data. That's not really what they want. There's more value out of, hey, you know, your email server is open to the internet for some reason. I don't know why. We had a client that just had a baseline, and they wanted a red team exercise was their term. They wanted it on one IP address, and it was their email server, and just generically we were able to trace their email routes and find that they were going through it was like an old email admin had actually set up some boxes at his house, and all that company's email was going through that guy's house for about 6 years, and he'd been gone for 4 of those 6 years. And what does that mean? That means that he was potentially, didn't say was stealing their company information, private information for 4 years. I'm kind of running this into the blue team because if you don't know blue team, it's hard to do red team. And if you don't know red team, it's hard to do blue team, right? So kind of bringing those together. And the second is I always discover a vulnerability. You know, what does that mean? Is it everyone wants to talk about, again, you know, the latest and greatest vulnerability that's happened. You know, my favorite, which I'll talk about, is Eternal Blue. And I'm so upset that people are upgrading their stuff because that was super fun. We're going to go through that. But like even like an open port, I'll give you an easy example. If you guys use, there's like a open port scanner or Angry IP or something like that, ports, right? So people don't think about that as a vulnerability. It totally is. Like you don't have to have like some type of, you know, Nessus scanner or even your open source scanner or whatever, Quality. It just run a port scan. And what you could do is find like, I mean, generically, like even last week I ran one on a client we were working for and they had FTP open. Okay, that's not maybe abnormal, kind of weird to use and still FTP. So I just pull up my FileZilla because it's super easy and it's free. And then I just log in anonymously. And maybe you guys think that's kind of weird and that doesn't happen. Well, it happens all the time. I do appreciate that the industry is way ahead of its curve on some big heavy pen testing items, but I would say like, you know, I mean, 95% of all companies have never had a pen test, maybe 90. They know what it is, they know they need it, and if they do get a pen test, it's not a pen test, it's a Nessus scan, and whoever bills them for that calls it a pen test. Personally, I mean, even just having a port scan of what's open is pretty amazing. It's also a good idea using a port scanner to see, because you have these super crazy, you know, crafty IT guys that will change the ports, right? So they'll say, hey man, a telnet, it's not what it is, and it's like 1337, which is one of my favorite ones. Anyone tries to change a port to elite is I'm all in. I think they're the guy in the picture right now. They're a hacker man, right? So it's on port elite. Also some great Trojans run on that port anyway. But it's good to know, like, we're all talking about breaking into something heavy, but just breaking into just like normal person environment or company, they're not running, they're not closing their ports, they're open, or they don't even know typically. Secure your environment. Of course, right? So that's kind of why you do it, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? So a lot of people are like, we don't need a pen test because we're secure. Well, how do you know? And if you do know, have you done a pen test? And if you have a pen test, do you actually find the right vulnerabilities? That's why in any group, as you guys, if you have any corporate people here, is you should always rotate your pen testers after a certain amount of time, because they're vertical. Just like the gentleman was saying earlier, your vision, your scope is different, right? Whether you come, you know, from whatever your background is, whether it's, you know, teaching or, you know, where you grew up, like your vision, your scope of that is totally changed, and the focus of the actual attack will be different. So it's a pretty cool thing, you know. That's why I always like to mix it up and have new people with new ideas. Again, we're having this talk as trying to get new people in the industry has a different background than us on this call today. Also, another reason, pen tests, right? You make auditors happy, and which whatever, right? So if you need that, you should get that. And also, this kind of pivots into the blue team. One of the things I do the most when doing a pen test, and I give this to you guys, is I highly recommend, is when you're doing like a SQL injection, or when you're doing some type of, you know, some type of attack, I always recommend that you record those times. You write the time down, you know, at 11 o'clock. I was trying to DDoS the Discord server. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, who knows? But, you know, did anyone catch the logs? Were you guys paying attention? If I was attacking you, do you even know what it would look like? Swinging back to the blue team, is if you have an attack, and when you get into the blue team vibe, right, you have these like cool, you know, devices that when something goes bad, it blinks red at you, and that means bad, right? So you have this red light and it's like, hey man, this is bad, and then you respond. But what if someone broke in your facility and you didn't know? So that goes back to, you don't know what you don't know. So doing pen tests, you've got to document when you're doing your attacks, because it's going to help the client, it's going to help you guys, even internally. If you know, working on your own home network and stuff like that, if you do, you know, cause a brute force attack, that's cool. Did you see it? And if you didn't, why did you not? Kind of going back, this goes back to even incident response through pen testing. Hacker came in, they did a brute force. Well, how long were they brute forcing? Oh, well, apparently it was 3 months. Okay, well, that's not good. So, and then we have to go back and find those rules. I think pen testing, to me, is like the first getting there. We've got to find the vulnerability, you pen test, and you can start encouraging the blue team. So I just kind of want to throw that out there. Plus, you know, you get these cool reports and the auditors, and, you know, company still makes money. Also, the last reason that everyone is a pen tester wants to be is because you can be super cool, hacker man, and you get to go to cool conferences like this and like DEF CON, and you know, you can wear black t-shirts, you know, and you won't be called like a goth or anything, right? Because you'll be like the new punk rock, right? You know, everyone watches Mr. Robot these days, so I think that's the new vibe. I like that. During this presentation, I actually do like you guys to learn a lot. So if you have any questions, you just want to interrupt me or just tell me to be quiet or hurry up, I'm totally open to that. I have someone actually watching that, so they can stop me and tell me to stop talking. So if you have any questions, type them in and give me a hard time. And again, I appreciate you guys inviting me. Okay, first thing before I even get into like hacking. So we have things called a red team exercise. You guys may have heard this. This is like, to me, this is a true pen test. A traditional pen test, and I'm just trying to give you guys the scope because I feel like a lot of people are always so deep about what they're into. A pen test traditionally is someone comes in, and what they do is they like, come on in, come sit down, and you plug into their network, and they either have DHCP or they have static. And if they have static, then they give you an IP, and then you start to perform your hacking. To me, that's not a real pen test. That is a organized vulnerability assessment internal pen. That is not a real pen test. Because as you guys know, when you got, if you guys ever get asked, hey man, I need you to breach this company, what's the first thing you do? And if you don't know, then I'm glad you're here. Exposure intelligence, right? So I give you guys something super simple, right? So when we're doing like a full red team engagement, so it's top to bottom. So we do vishing, obviously voice phone calls, phishing, which is, you know, click emails. Those are pretty cool and hot, and everyone talks about those, but to me, they're kind of boring, just keeping it real. What I like to do is, technically, we'll try to do, first thing is whaling. That's a term I'm for sure that I made up. So what I like to do is immediately, you know, generically go to LinkedIn and then get all the cool technical people, because everyone wants to say what they're doing. And typically over time, you'll know if they have their email address, so their domain, right? So mine, if you want to look mine up, it's totally cool, but you'll know my domain, right? So it's either first name domain or first name dot last name domain or first letter last name domain. What that does is you can basically really quick go on the internets and LinkedIn or Facebook or any of that other social media. And you can quickly find all the people that you need to attack, whether sending email or stuff like that. There's also free verified email stuff that you can go on. You can type an email and see if it punches back. There is some resistance in that because it is free. And if for some reason you use too many a day, just use your VPN, just connect from a different one, so you can have kind of an unlimited verification of email. And also what I love the most is before we do like a straight, like cold red team attack, meaning all we have is a company name, I love it when people put their talents. That is something that they're most proud of, and having that knowledge, that's how we will kind of classify our attack. If someone always talks about social engineering through emails and stuff like that, we probably won't go that route. So then we'll kind of flip the script, and what we'll do is we'll probably go to a physical pen test. We'll try to ethically break in to the company either through their badge system or their card system. So what we'll do is, if we feel there's too much, we'll say, talent watching the actual border of the infrastructure, the network, we'll go on site. We will case the place, which is love. Again, we're like professional paid criminals, by the way. We'll go and case the place, and we will actually look at everyone's badge. We will go to Office Depot, and we can recreate that badge within, about 10 minutes tops, right? We just got to reclassify it and get it. And that's kind of another reason how we go in. A good story behind that. as I kind of go through the presentations, we had a client who their network was pretty rock solid. We couldn't get any spoofing emails through. We had already culled all the information from LinkedIn, Facebook, and we were just not getting anywhere. So what we had done was we had actually gone to case the facility. I found that there was a few people that were outside smoking. So we created a badge to get in the facility. And it was funny as one of my engineers, and I was like, hey man, do you smoke? He's like, nope. And I was like, you do now. So went and bought him a pack of cool Camel Crushes. And I had him sit outside with the smokers and listen to what they were saying. So the whole point was what we were going to do is we're going to have to sandwich into the company. So a sandwich is like a sandwich, right? So you got two people here or whatever. And we're going to go in the middle. So we were able to scan through, and if you guys realize, as he went through that, he was listening to what they were saying. They were talking about what our client does. He was able to ride the elevator with them, go up to the top floor and scan in. They even said, no, you go first. And he's like, no, sir, after you, because they were being overly polite, and it almost caused us to get caught. So first guy badged in, my guy badged in. If you guys don't know this, when you have a badge, it actually will scan, it'll go beep. It may turn, it'll turn red or green, right? But it'll still beep. You won't hear a different sound unless it's a different mechanism. So all they did was heard a beep, right? So we're using the intelligence of normal behavior. Hey, this guy's talking what we're talking about. He's come up the same floor. I heard a beep, and they let him right in. And the cool part about that was I told them to go in, and I told them they were having lunch. So I told them to make them a plate of lunch. And then that's how we were able to input USB sticks. Kind of going back through that. Yes.
Question. What is the difference between pen test and red team?
Pen test. Okay, so a red team engagement, again, in my vernacular, is we have a company name, go fight. That's pretty much all we ever get. And that's the real exercise of trying to attack a company as opposed to a pen test. A pen test is more of a orchestrated simulation of an attack. You could do a, quote, pen test from the internet. You could do a pen test internal. You could log in, that's where I say they walk you in and you do your network scanning tools like that. I classify that as a pen test. A red teaming is the stuff that I love. That stuff is super cool. And that's where they give you the full scope, just to, hey, here's a company name, just do what you got to do. Is that good, Teddy? Okay, cool. Thank you for the question. Okay, kind of going through as before we attack, and we have the red team on the pen testing. Man, it's so easy. Like, man, you guys can find IP ranges. If you guys don't use Shodan, shame on you. Welcome to Shodan. It's free. All you got to do is type in a company email, a company name. It won't come back every time, but it will if you just give it some time, right? You just got to research and research. If they give you an external IP address, you can do more research on that. Obviously, they're business partners. Another thing we were able to do is we were able to call into a company. What companies love to do is brag about their business partners and the business they do with those partners. We found a client that had said, hey, we're doing business with this big development company. They're called X, and they're here, and here's the guy we're doing business with. So what we did, we took that awesome press release and built basically a phishing campaign. So I called in myself, and I was able to convince the lead designer that we were going to send him a new upgrade. Since there was a software development company, we have some devs on our side that we created exploit, and we were able to infiltrate the company and upload the exploit to the test server. And that was part of the job. And also known vulnerabilities. Again, I just go back to, I go generically, there's many other sites. Even Shodan shows known vulnerabilities. They're out there. It's that easy. And from that point, you have LinkedIn information, you have IP ranges, and also net worth, right? I think this is where a lot of the ransomware guys, I think they're getting smarter about this. I mean, they hit up a company and it's called X. They got to type in company name, net worth, and they'll say, hey, they're not worth 20 million, they're worth $5 billion. And then the ransom goes up. And if they don't do that, then I just gave them too much information. But just saying, it's out there. Pastebin sites, oh my gosh, man. If my favorite thing to do probably every day is watch the trending Pastebin site, trending Pastebin. You can go on there, there's leaked username and passwords. We have some crawlers that we like to do. So when we do reconnaissance, maybe we have some leaked stuff that's only out there for a day or two. Again, let me take a step back for some other people. Pastebin site is when people anonymously post something. Typically, they usually do it for doxing. It's what they do, doxing, or they also do it for leaked credentials, vulnerability code. They also do it if they're about to breach a company. They will put it out there and say, hey, I'm going to ransom you. And that's how they show proof. So they'll throw a pastebin link up. If a company's getting hacked, that's another way that they transfer that information, saying, hey, not only did I hack you, here's a taste of the data. I've seen databases leaked out there. I can tell you another one we worked for. A company got breached, and they got a really cool email to their network administrator, and it said, hey, guess what? We have all your stuff, and if you don't give us money, we're just going to collapse everything. So what they had done is they had actually leaked. They said that they were going to leak this information to a pastebin site. We got engaged, checked it out, and it was pretty legit. Lucky enough that I guess the client decided that data was old and it wasn't worth their time. But it was interesting to see that kind of play out in real time. That there are people out there that do that for different reasons. I mean, whatever. Hackers are out there, so that's why you guys all have a job if you're in this industry. So you can say thank you to them today. All right, dark web. I know this sounds like cliche, and I apologize to everyone who's cringing at this point. I do as well, but it's fine. So if you actually can go on the dark web, deep web, and you can literally buy exploits, be careful because they probably have malware in them anyway. I only give this example because we were able to go on there and buy a RAT remote access tool. Was what a RAT is. Sorry about that. Where we paid, it was literally just $5. So we have an off whatever we have a Bitcoin thing that we use, and we're buying stuff kind of back and forth through some Bitcoin exchanges. I said I didn't want to talk about that. Never mind, forget Bitcoin. But we bought it there, and it actually gave us remote access to a client inside of their financials. And how that, because again, that's the red team, right? So we found out we got a RAT available. We were able to remote in and start taking access to that company. What we found out, the next thing was we had to immediately contact that client and say, yo, man, we were able to get in. This is not good. And then we have to figure out, why did this happen? Why would this even be available? This was when TeamViewer didn't have the dual authentication yet. And what happened was the head financial leader, advisor, whatever for the company, had some computer issues on the weekend, and her son's friend did computer work. So he installed TeamViewer on there, was able to get in with default credentials, boom, and that's kind of, he just never uninstalled it. So that's how it happened. So you kind of have a full circle, which I love, having the red team, having the blue team. You can learn a lot. And again, for all you people in the middle, purple team as well, right? So that kind of makes the blend there, right? You don't know what you don't know. Reconnaissance, list forums, discovery, purchase data about the company. You can do this all the time. I mean, you can be in forums. I don't have too much as I used to. I used to do, there was like a few accounts. I had sock puppet accounts. Sock puppeting is like a sock puppet. You put a sock on your hand and you go in a forum, and then you just start like Google translating all your English into Mandarin or Russian. So then you can look super cool, and it's a little confusing because it doesn't quite add up, but then you can start getting some information and then translate the information that's in the forum that could be potentially locked to the outside. Good luck getting access these days, but it is a thing that happens, and that's kind of how that works. Okay, any questions yet? Perfect. Okay. All right, here's one tool that we use. You guys can use this. It's a free 99, which is my favorite price. This tool is called Maltego. Again, it has an example. I use theirs because I didn't ask for permission to put this in the slides, so I'm just using stuff from the internet. So I can't, I'm not endorsed by these guys, but they're super cool. It's free. It's on Cali. Again, you can type in an email address. You can type in, whether a Facebook account, MySpace account for you super old people. You can even type in a news groups for you really super historic Linux, Unix people out there. It'll also come up, and it does like this really cool like spider pattern on who's connected to what. Also comments on YouTube, comments on Google Video, RIP, all kinds of stuff out there. And if you want to get a little more advanced about it, you can pay for other threat feeds inside of Maltego. And it's minimal. I mean, if you really want to do some real cool reconnaissance, here's what you use. We may or may not use tools just like this before you hire anyone. And I think you guys should do that too. Before you hire someone in the security field, you should probably do your own background, because you're going to look kind of silly if a client brings it to your attention that of what a potential employee is doing. So, and also it's a really good thing to see what the internet has about you, right? It's a lot of cool things. Again, you can look up yourself, look up on me or whatever. I mean, it's all out there. So It's something to look at and see what's kind of available and kind of go from it. It's really interesting. If you guys haven't used it, man, I highly recommend it. Here's another shot of it. This is one on a span of a network. This is us putting in some IP addresses or even a company name. It quickly spans the internet. You got FTP sites, you have their Windows accounts, you have their 365s, you have the websites that are authorized and classified to that company. You have all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's also exploits that claim that they may have been associated with the company. You have listserv drops, all kinds of stuff. I hope that you guys are currently using this tool. If not, you should. It's really cool. Oh, also RDPs. I have open RDPs. You're gonna go back, remote desktop protocol. That's the tool that you use just from Windows to remote into a machine. It'll also verify if the guest is still available, which if you still have guest on your computer machines, please disable it, because people still today have the guest user enabled, which is insane. But again, going back to, you don't have to be super crazy like Hackerman. Just knowing how a computer works would be great. Now I'm going to give you one other cool like thing about like just knowing computers. I was working for a financial institution, and you guys will love this. If you guys, we were scanning a port, and I forget which one it was. I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. It was an old one called. You guys remember Net Meeting? Like, again, I'm aging myself now, but this is way back in the day. So there's Net Meeting port, and this actually was open on this financial institution. What they had done is they had actually merged with another company, and they needed someone to go through and check their vulnerabilities. Now, is that a vulnerability in itself? No, it's not. It's a port. It's an open thing that you can touch, right? So what we were able to do is, since it was actually a Windows 95 machine, obviously a lot of exploits for that. So I had to go back and use the old school NetBus. If you guys don't know what that is, that's some super old stuff, but it was fun, right? But just knowing that, just being in that when I was like a little kid, knowing that information and bring it, and so this was like 3 years ago. Just knowing that information, being in IT, that makes a really good pen tester. It's not so much the skills you have, it's the knowledge you have about the systems, the environments, networking, and how you would actually perform security. So again, my soapbox. Okay, scanning and vulnerabilities. What does that mean? Okay, that's what I got here. Why do we scan an environment? Well, we scan it. This is different. So we do port scanning. I talked about that way earlier. Vulnerabilities, man, there's so many out there. I forget the one, and shame on me. I always call it green bones, but that's not what it's called. OpenVOS. It was green bones, like the old one that has the green helmet guy, whatever, the dinosaur. Anyway, so yeah, so you got to scan. Why? Because there's vulnerabilities, there's CVEs out there that you don't know about, and why would you? That doesn't make any sense. So you have automated tools. We've already done the exposure, the intelligence, and then you do an automated search again for vulnerabilities that may or may not be in that environment. It saves you a ton of time. I say this all the time: is one scanner good enough? Absolutely not. I don't know why you would do that. If you have access to use multiples, I mean, I know time, and when you get like a company, a business, they may want you to use a specific one because it's been approved by change control, and that's super boring. But then if you just use that one, then, you know, use your port scanner yourself, because a lot of those vulnerability scanners, Nessus, Qualys, all the main ones, they typically don't scan all ports unless you specify. And I feel like that's the coolest part, is scanning just manually, even in Nmap, that you can kind of scan, you can get your own, basically call your own data. Again, not practical, single scan, next step. Vulnerability is found, now what? So we talked about vulnerability. So a vulnerability, again, I'm being super generic. I know a lot of you guys know this, right? So it's something, it's a way that you can gain some type of access from a computer. It's a way that you can get inside, or maybe to inject code, modify, gain access to a device. That's really what a vulnerability is. And again, I kind of already went through multiple ways to get it. It's not just scanners, it's intelligence, it's the company's exposure, it's people that have worked for it, because again, everyone thinks that computers vulnerable. Well, that's super cool, but what about the people, right? How vulnerable are the people? That's a huge vulnerability. That's a big one. Again, I go back to everyone's all about these phishing emails, but what about voice, a voice? Been able to convince people to do stuff over the phone. Is that a vulnerability? Absolutely. So we're not just doing the scanning, we're also collecting all vulnerabilities from the human aspect, from the physical door aspect, which we talked about earlier, and also from the computer aspect, because I feel like a lot of people, when they do a pen test, they're so just like in this little box. Plus, you guys don't like to talk to humans. I get that, man. I ain't about that either, but that stuff's exhausting. That's why we work with computers. But like you have to realize like what's a real vulnerability. You're limiting your scope when you only think that a vulnerability is just a computer. So enough said about that. Okay. And then another thing I always recommend, if you guys are helping a client out, you got to do like another 30 days. So after you help them and you kind of hack in, or even if you're helping, your own network, what I love the best is when you provide a cool report to an IT guy, and then he gets super upset, and then he gets really mad, and he's like this dude, and he puts on his power glove because he's so upset, and he knows way more than you because he's been working in the field since whatever. Just scan it 30 days later and see if they actually fixed it, because it happens all the time. They always say they fixed it and they don't. And that's not what it's about. Pen testing is about helping somebody to secure their environment business-wise. Otherwise, that's different. But I'm saying, like, you guys that work, have a full-time job, that's your job. Your job is to secure the environment. It's not there to make people happy or whatever. Just tell them the truth. We talked to robots. The robot said you were vulnerable, so fix it. And then I'll ask the robot if you're vulnerable again, and they'll probably say yes or no. So it's pretty simple. I feel like that gets pretty confusing in business as well. Okie dokie. This is just an example of an OpenVOS scan. See, I even forgot it's in my presentation here. And oh, by the way, guys, this is free. So if you have never used it, please do. Before you scan, make sure that you update your signatures all the time. And secondly, be careful what you scan. According to the court, I believe scanning is not a crime, but gaining access or modifying anything is. So that's up to you. So I recommend doing all testing inside on your own private network. But yeah, yes, this is free, so you guys should check it out. There's a lot of stuff out there. It's heavily, I would say, updated by the OpenVOS team, and thank them for being a part of the security world, because a lot of people need to learn, and not everyone has enough money to buy a scanner. So I think it's a good part to donate to that, and I appreciate them for doing that. So if you guys have ever seen what that looks like, it looks like this. So I thought you guys might want to check that out. Okay, another cool one. If you guys do not know what Nmap is, welcome to the internet. Nmap has been around forever. Nmap is a scanning tool. Again, it's more automated, but what I love the best, this is actually my favorite one, is not only can you scan a full subnet, meaning you plug into a network, you get an IP address, and you can scan from 1 to 255 or whatever the network architecture is. What I also love about this, there's a lot of vulnerabilities you can obtain from this. When you have the scanners, you have to realize is that they're really loud. When we do the red team stuff, again, I appreciate me qualifying that. When we do a red team one, we will not use a scanner like a Nessus or an OpenVOS, because it is too loud. What I realized in the past is when you obviously you don't want to make enough noise, especially if an IDS, an intrusion detection system or intrusion prevention system gets you, then you're going to be blacklisted and your IP address will be banned. And then the event is over, and then you're super sad because you lost, and whatever, you got the blue team won. So what I recommend is I call walking it. So you can slow down in Nmap. By the way, Nmap is you can use the CLI. This is a picture of Zenmap, people who don't have, we'll say, command line interface skills or terminal skills. I know there are some people out there. I know probably a lot of you like terminal and stuff like that, but there is Zenmap, which is basically the GUI insert for that. I want to let you guys, so the example here, just scanning an ASUS router, it lets me know what ports are available on that. I'm looking, I can't point to it, but it's 8053, 8443. I only point those out because it's an odd port. Someone may know what that is, but that's an easy way to jump in there and say, man, that's a weird port. What is that? Again, just go to Google, figure out what port it was, and see how to connect to that terminal. And when I say going back to the walking it statement is when you use a scanner, it usually will scream, let's just say you did the basic ports. I think it's like 1 to 1 or 1024, right? Port 1024. And it will shoot like all those sessions and say, hey, I need all this information. It'll be screamed right in the face of that machine, and it'll do it through the whole network. But this one, you can actually slow it down and say, is port 1 open? Port 2, 3, 4. And you get it all the way to 65,000, whatever, 65,000, I forget. But you guys, what you can do that actually keeps it low profile. And typically IDS, IPS systems will not utilize this type of transaction because it's not loud. It does take more time, but if the point of the red team is actually breach control and not be caught, this is a way to do it. And it's so funny because it's an old tool. And again, how you can subvert this, which we have done for other clients, is no one should be running this ever. So if there's like any type of user agent you can ban, if it says Nmap, probably should ban it, or any type of use of a scanner inside of we'll say the finance group. Why is someone using it in the finance group? You can write blue team tools and also snort rules for this stuff. That's a whole different discussion, but I just kind of bring that full scope on how the red team can encourage and help the blue team learn. So if you guys don't know what that is, if you can't do command line interface, use Zenmap. It's easy peasy. Okay. All right. You guys ready? It's hacker man time. All right. So what are we talking about? So Cali, if you're super old, use backtrack, and I'm going to make fun of you forever. And we can hang out and we can talk about the good old days. So Cali Linux is a Debian-based Linux distribution aimed at advanced penetration testing and security auditing. Okay, what this is so I'm not going to go through this because I feel like there's probably like 8 other like presentations on Cali, but I'm going to tell you this is the tool that you use when you find the vulnerabilities, and I'm just kind of explaining this for people who may not be aware, right? So let's go back. We're doing a red team. We found intelligence. The intelligence brought us into a company. We were able to get into a port that we found, we'll say again, just port 22. We use the Metasploit tool in Cali, and it'll do a scan. It'll say, hey, this FTP server is vulnerable to X. Then you use the executable, or you execute the execute on the machine. That way you can take full control. So you can use basic other hacking techniques. This is more of I would say a full access granting, taking control of that. If you guys, again, I won't talk about Cali too much, but using those different exploits that you can download is a good place to start. There's so many resources out there. Again, I highly recommend just downloading a Windows XP machine and put on your network and start using, again, you can run the scanners against it. You can find what's vulnerable to, and you can use those exploits from Metasploit to take over a machine and gain full access. The next part of this presentation is going to be probably pretty quick, but I want to let you guys know, like, kind of using, like, you don't have to be super hacker man and know a lot about, Linux and stuff like that to be a good hacker. I'm just going to give you guys a few examples, just knowing technology to kind of basically take over a company. And again, you guys can do this at home. All right, so this first example is what I was able to do. This is, again, this is a printer. No one cares about printers. This is so stupid. No one wants a printer, right? What a printer does is it usually has email addresses, right? So if you can exploit a printer address with the magical password of admin, was able to gain control of this printer, and it had a full list of every employee in the company. Okay, that's super cool. So I was able to get that information, and then I was able to start, then we actually planned an email attack on the side. At this same course is we were able to also get access, since we had admin access to the printer, every email that was sent to that printer, we had it exfilled. We put a forwarding rule. Anything that was scanned into the machine, we forwarded it outside the company, and we were able to exfil the company through multiple PII and stuff. Obviously, we were hired to do this, so this was an ethical engagement. What I'm saying is a lot of people think that hacking is like, using, the Metasploit tool, which again, I agree with that. I think that's great. But just knowing that a stupid printer, if you just typed in the model name and typed in default password, this stuff is still out there. These screenshots are not that old. Even, I would say even a month and a half ago, I was able to get into a printer and do the exact same thing, which was even cool because I set up SMTP on it. So I made it a mail server just to send out my mail and my messages from the printer. That way, if anything came back to me as the hacker, it actually would come back to the company and they would get the letter from the FBI, and that's a whole other thing. This was a really cool thing. So we talk about just IP scanning. What I was able to do, just using a scanning tool, what I had found is, again, I was on site. I was able to just run my scanning tool. I was able to identify a SolarWinds box. And again, just using the default credentials, I was able to, someone set up a SolarWinds box, and I had asked the client, I said, hey, do you have SolarWinds? And they said, absolutely not. But what someone did who used to work there, and this is typically, it's just IT, neglect from the network, I was able to find all their entire network to the entire company within 5 minutes because someone was super generous and was able to put every subnet in their SolarWinds product that was hilariously expired, but it was still running on a box that they had no idea about. That's super cool. That's quick reconnaissance, and that was quick takeover of the company. That wasn't crazy hacker, man. I always think people, especially in our field, are super intelligent, but I think they always overthink everything. And sometimes you just got to take a breath and just take a step back and just kind of keep it simple. As you run into, difficulty, then you can start turning up the running scripts and maybe running custom exploits and stuff like that. But again, this is, if I started running exploits, custom exploits, I would have totally missed this had I not just run just a port scan, right? Pretty cool. Again, I talked about this one, FTP that was open. What I was able to do was we were able to just anonymously log into this, no password, FileZilla, it's free, and we were able to actually put execution code on this and take over a box. So again, having write access to a machine via FTP because it was open and they, quote, don't use FTP in their company. What that means is we shouldn't be using it, and I don't know who is actually doing it, typically what that means. Again, doing something super simple, taking over a client, executing something FTP because we had a read-write access. We're able to take control of that machine and kind of move along. And then kind of, again, keeping it simple, just getting into, so this was a vault that no one had ever seen ever in their life. But that was what they said. We were able to scan the network. I was actually, when I did a scan, I found this port that this camera was running on. I put the port in Google, just being super generic. I was able to pull in what tool runs on that. I found out what vendor it was, downloaded the application tool to authenticate with it. It was all default, credentials were default. So I had this was the server, I was the host. I installed everything default, and then I was able to connect to it and authenticate. And I was able to see in their vault. There had been people that had worked in there for 8 years who had never seen inside this room. And we were on site for just a little bit and I was able to see, so pretty cool. Okay, also, if you guys, this is more of the Metasploit. This is not as cool as it used to be because it's kind of played out. But again, if you guys, there's a full instructions on the SMTP open relay. This is something that has been available externally. People put the OWA, you remember that for Outlook, and people are trying to move away from that, but there's still multiple out there. And you can even go to Shodan and type in OWA. There's still a lot of sites that are vulnerable to this. If you kind of look, it says mail from, it says Kenya Prince at kenyaroom.com. We sent it to the guy who brought us on. And if you look at the subject, it was Nigerian Prince needs your help. And I said, hey, bro, please send my Bitcoin wallet, Kenya conference. And I said, I will expect to hear from you with respects and irregardlessness, which I try to be funny. Another thing we use this on, again, this was something that was open. And the cool part about this one, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but what it does, it actually, when people connect their OWA, and you don't need password credentials, it actually hijacks that session and gives you full access. Also, at the same time, you can download all their attachments in their mailbox. Another client we did this for, I actually told their whole team they could go take a vacation day because the guy who hired us, I hijacked his mailbox and told his whole team they could go home on vacation. So, and he actually let them go home. So it was funny. So it was good times. Okay. And if you guys are unaware of the Eternal Blue, which is my sadness that everyone's patching it, it breaks my heart. This stuff's really not that difficult. If you use Metasploit, there's a walkthrough just on how to do this. I love this one just because in the bottom it says when. What we were able to do is, again, scanning the machine, found out it was vulnerable to Eternal Blue, run the Metasploit tool. It's really almost that easy, but I think a lot of people really want to be super hacker man, but they don't want to actually do their own research. I hate to say it, but they don't, and plus they don't understand networking and how all that works. Kind of saying we were able to exploit it using Metasploit, and it said the word when, which gets me super pumped. After that, and here's kind of the next step. So if you guys don't know what this means, I'll kind of walk you through it. I'll tell you because I know you're reading it now. But once we gained access to the machine, one of the machines, I made myself a net user, and it was called alias. Password is this. A net user is a user agent on, or a user profile on the machine that I actually inputted into the computer. I created a username, I created a password, and then if you look at the bottom there, I made it a local group of the administrators. This goes back to me knowing how computers work, making myself a local administrator on the box. What I further did, since we didn't have domain access, I know that the typical, because this was a server that a lot of the server admins would log into. I know that these server admins would have probably domain access, so I put in a booby trap. We put in if you guys aren't familiar with this, we put in a booby trap. So I put in a batch file that when X logs in, I put the batch file in the startup file for all users. So when they log in, it makes the alias account a domain user for the entire company, which they did because they had maintenance because it was Patch Tuesday, gave us domain access that way, and we were able to take over the whole company. So again, just knowing how a computer works, you don't have to be super hacker man. I just kind of wanted to share those different examples and let you guys know that if you're kind of wanting to get into it, I highly recommend it. You don't have to be, again, an extreme coder, something like that. There's always a way. Just understand how computers work and maybe just don't think too difficult about it. I was just showing you that I was able to get into the machine, get access here. So I made myself an admin account. I was able to log in and take control of the machine. Some takeaways. Let's see here. Exposure intelligence. It kind of brings it down to this. We talked about that, like, you know, see what this client, see kind of what you're working, even your company. Well, what are you guys exposed to? Have you ever looked on Pastebin for your company? Ever looked for your name on the company? Have you used Multigo? There's other tools you can use that are out there that have some really good intelligence behind them. I'm a big fan. Scanning and vulnerabilities. We talked about OpenVOS. Nmap, please use those. Those are the greatest things in the world, depending on the objective of your goal. If you just want to scan and check vulnerabilities, use OpenVOS. If you want to do maybe more pinpointing and maybe see if there's some oddity ports open, you can do a port scan, enter IP address, do a drop down, and select all IPs or all ports, and it'll give you a cool rundown of that. Hacker time, I talk about understanding Metasploit. Once you find the vulnerability, that's when you can start executing on the box and see if you can take control. There's so much stuff that's released all the time. There's a few companies that are really behind the Metasploit development. And if you do have some questions, the communities, I feel like, is always there to help. As for myself, if anyone ever has any questions about stuff like that, I'm always down to help. It's not too difficult to find me on the interwebs. Shoot me an email, whether it's about blue team or something you're seeing or red team or any of that stuff. I do like to help, and that's why I really like to participate in as much B-sides as possible. And then again, after you show, whether your boss or whatever yourself, that you're able to fix it from an IT perspective, make sure you rescan. That way everything's actually secure. And when you actually put your seal of approval on it, it is completed. And then at the end, good luck, have fun for all you gamers out there. And then that's the end. I'm definitely here to have questions. I ended a little early, but if you guys have any questions, again, about red team, blue team, purple team, incident response, penetration testing, all that cool stuff, let me know.
Yeah, one question that came up, well, first off, thanks very much. One of the questions that came up in Discord is, what are your thoughts on the use of zero-day vulnerabilities during a pen test? And I know that's kind of a holy war to some.
No, so I guess the answer is, so a 0 day, I would say, first thing is, did the client want it? Is the client aware? So we have had clients that said, you bring whatever you want. So we're able to create our own O-day, exploits because of the infrastructure they have, that it wouldn't be seen by AV or anything. Typically, that kind of starts moving into the code pen test also, which also is quick into the web app pen test, which is like a new vertical that is really cool to get into. Using Burp Suite for all that. If the client wants it, sure. Typically, they get kind of pissed off because they're like, we didn't know about this. How would we know? If we didn't hire you, it wouldn't even exist. So I guess that would be. I guess I'm like 50-50. So if someone wants to pay me to do it, then I'm down. If not, then I probably won't put the extra effort in unless the goal is like a capture the flag, which I didn't talk about. Capture the flag is another pen test that you can be used for that says, hey, we want you to get access to, this server, just specifically that server, or domain access, or, we want you to attack our core switches. That's a little different. So I'm kind of 50-50 on that one. If someone wants to pay for us to develop an O day when we're on site, that's cool. And if they don't, then I wouldn't do it, just because it's a waste of time professionally, because we don't drop those either. So and some companies, they make money off that, and that's cool too. And sometimes we use those during engagements. So
that's a great transition. Talk to us about scope of work.
Yeah, so that was kind of like, I think that's a huge problem with like our industry. There's so many, I literally just kind of went through like multiple pen tests. Again, I'm using the word pen test generically. There's web app pen test. There is external pen test. There's network pen test. That means someone's going to walk you in hand to hand and plug you into the network and let you do their work, right? There's also, again, we talked about pen testing, physical pen testing, and you have to talk about social pen testing. That's where you do the voice phishing and the email phishing. People don't ever define scope. They're like, I want a pen test. I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Do you want a vulnerability scan? Because it's probably what you think you're asking. Do you want me to just tell you what you're vulnerable to, like what you need to patch? Or do you want us to try to break in? And if we do break in, do you want us to try to get access control? And if we do get access control, do you want us to try to modify something? And then all that is something that needs to be defined when you get into a scope, because I think people, when they ask for a pen test, which is good, one of our biggest problems in this industry is no one really knows what the hell security is. But now people understand what a pen test is, but they don't understand there's different levels of a pen test and how far the scope can go, because you can get yourself in some hot water. Case in point, company out of the area that you guys are in was arrested because the scope of work wasn't really nailed down and qualified, and they got arrested for on 3 felonies. They have been released. I personally put out a call to drop those charges as well, because it was BS. But just saying, I would, even though they didn't get, they got released and all that stuff, I can't even imagine someone in our field like that just trying to do their job getting arrested. I bet that was pretty wild. So hope I answered that question.
Right, and one of the topics that has come up in chat a couple times now is that classically, if you exceeded the scope of work, you might get your hand slapped. But recently we saw a pretty high profile case where 2 pen testers were arrested, and ultimately it boiled down to a game of politics. There's a great article in Wired that goes through the entire story. It actually has body cam footage of sheriffs talking to them, the whole works. And there's more in the Discord chat about others that have been arrested. So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Again, I even hate to bring these knuckleheads into these, but maybe run it by legal. Make sure your scope is understood. Make sure that typically, and I always make sure that I have a really good relationship with the client itself. Make sure, and if they're super sketchy about it, I have to take a step back, and you need to think about that when you guys are out there doing this. Is if your client doesn't trust you, the security guy, then you probably need to be very careful. If they're asking you maybe too much questions about what are you doing, or where you're like, there's a difference between qualifying a vendor, and there's a difference between like, I don't think I trust you, I think there's something going on here. You need to be very careful, because most likely they're going to probably set you up for some type of trap. So I also recommend, when we do any type of, if I ever do any exploiting or anything like that, Cali has the record button, the video button, because I've even said, hey, all this stuff was vulnerable. I give them the report, and they're like, this is not vulnerable, this is all fake. So then at the end, I'm like, scroll down to the bottom, there's an appendix that has a screenshot, and in the bottom right, there is a date and time. So you must have changed it. And I'm not trying to get on to you IT guys, but just let me do my job. No one's in trouble here. We're on your side. We're probably going to be better in your court if you let us do our job, because then you'll have more money for your budget. Plus you can show your boss you're doing work because we found the vulnerability and you fixed it. I think that's a big, huge gap between the security and the IT world that we need to come together to understand we're on the same team.
Right, and see, that's a great point. I did pen testing for 13 years, and one of the things that we did that I strongly encourage is that while the report will carry some evidence to show what you found and what you were able to do, make sure that you keep extensive logs. logs of your shell sessions, logs of your web proxy, log everything. Keep it for 10 years or more, just in case someone comes back on you and has a question that you can present the full evidence if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you never know, because, you know, also those companies you're working for sometimes get traded and they want to know the security posture of that business. And you, if the contract's in it, if they have a huge MSA that you didn't read, you may have to produce that during a merge or a sell of that business. So be very mindful of the contracts you sign.
Yep, and keep your statement of work. If you get a get out of jail free card for doing physical testing, not only keep a copy on you, keep a copy in your car, a copy at home, a copy in a safe deposit box. Basically, you just want to make sure that you are fully protected when you're doing this work.
Well said. Yeah, well said with that. Absolutely.
Okay, with that, we're going to kick you out of here. We're going to put you back in the Discord. So if there's more Q&A or anyone wants to have a discussion, feel free. There's already 2 people in the voice channel. So if you want to hop over and maybe kind of poke at them and see what they're talking about, they're probably cracking jokes about how old Telecon is, but we'll see.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time, Don. We really enjoyed your presentation and we look forward to seeing you next year, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. See you guys.